Hi there.
For some reason, I can't see you guys. Like,
Kathleen's having a technical difficulty as well, so it'll start in a minute. Hopefully we'll get Isaiah back too.
Okay, no problem.
Oh, there you are. I can see you now.
I just can't see or hear you. So, I mean, that's fine with me, but
Do you want to send out a new link?
I would rather not confuse everyone. I'll try to figure it out. I just didn't want to end this one with you guys in it.
Okay.
It's working on YouTube, so
Okay.
I can always watch there.
Kate, what are the other things that you've done as a Bonner? Like, what kind of service have you been doing?
So I'm working at a school in Orlando called SECO, which stands for Conductive Education Center of Orlando, and it's a school for kids with motor disabilities.
Okay.
So I'm there pretty much every day working part-time as a teaching assistant in one of the classrooms there.
Great.
That's
Hi,
my big
Grace.
thing.
Hi.
And how long have you been doing that for?
Just for this past full school year, so I started in September 2015.
Okay. And have you enjoyed that?
Oh, I've loved it so much. Yeah, the plan with the program is to stay with the same partner for all 4 years, so that's hopefully I'll be there until 2019.
That seems so far away.
Yeah.
Grace, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Are you still in Colorado?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I'm here for the next 2 weeks. And I'll be home.
Okay. We're just waiting on Isaiah, who's going to be in Indonesia with you. He was here, and then he was having a problem with his sound, so he's going to come back. And I think Layla's joining us too, right, Kathleen?
Yeah, Layla and Isaiah should both be.
Okay. So let's give him like 2 more minutes. I just told Isaiah we wouldn't start without him. So.
Yeah, Layla and Isaiah.
Kate, we also have another Bonner from the College of New Jersey who is in Tajikistan right now. He's teaching and working with an ecotourism NGO there.
Oh, cool. So have 2 of the trips already left? With the...
Yeah.
Okay.
So Morocco is about 3 weeks through. Tajikistan is 2 weeks through, and then you guys will overlap entirely, Indonesia and Zanzibar.
Okay.
Hey Isaiah, how you doing with sound? Can you? We can't hear you. Can you hear us though? Okay. So I guess that's not ideal, but there is the chat box, and you can ask questions using the chat box. And there's always an opportunity we can do a follow-up call, or either me or Kathleen, or email for whatever questions you have that don't get covered in this. Why don't we go ahead and get started? We're still expecting Layla as well, but just being conscious of the time, let's go ahead and move forward. And the first thing I always like to do is just have everybody introduce themselves, since you guys don't know each other yet, and you're going to different countries. If we could just go across, and Isaiah, you can start typing your introduction. But if you could just say who you are, where you're from, where you go to school, where you're going to and what you're going to be doing there, and it's a nice way for us to build network across different country programs as well. And starting off, I'm Ben Orbach. Isaiah, we haven't yet chatted, so I'm the Director of America's Unofficial Ambassadors, and I'm from Pittsburgh, and we started Unofficial Ambassadors 7 years ago, so I'm thrilled that you guys are joining the team. Grace, why don't you go ahead and start?
I'm Grace. I just finished my freshman year at Washington College as an international studies major. I'm from New Jersey, and I'm going to Indonesia to work at the Malimot all-girls school. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Good. Thanks, Grace. Isaiah is hopefully typing away his introduction. Kate, go ahead.
Hi guys, my name's Kate. I grew up in California, but I live in Savannah, Georgia now. And I also just finished my freshman year at Rollins College, which is in Florida, right outside Orlando. And I study international relations and religious studies there with a minor in Middle Eastern and North African studies. And I will be working in Zanzibar at the English-speaking international school.
Excellent. Kathleen, do you want to introduce yourself too?
Sure. I'm Kathleen. I'm the program coordinator for America's Unofficial Ambassadors. I've talked to all of you already multiple times. It's nice to have you all here together, though. I'm originally from the state of New York, upstate New York, and went to school, studied international relations at Lehigh University, taught for several years with Teach for America and a few other charter schools in New York City. And I'm very happy to be here now.
Good. So we've done our initial webinar and began our conversation about having an impact and being a citizen diplomat, and also bringing the experience home. And this is the most important stuff. I highly value the concepts and the mission of our program. But the most important thing is taking responsibility for safety, because if we don't do that, then all the rest of it is for naught. That we can have the greatest goals in the world, but if we're acting like knuckleheads or we're just not aware of our surroundings, it could all be in vain. And so the way we've put together this webinar, I put the agenda up in the chat box, and Kathleen sent it out to you as well. We're going to go through all of that, starting with things that you do pre-departure to things while you're traveling there and then while you're there. And we'll leave time for questions at the end. And my goal with this, what I didn't say in the introduction, is I've spent close to 20 years working in international relations, international development, traveling throughout Middle East, Africa, and Asia, living in a few different countries in the Middle East. And what we put together in your manuals and what's in this webinar are the best practices that both I and others have gleaned from similar experiences. And the goal is not just for you guys to be safe in your experiences in Indonesia and in Zanzibar, respectively, and to come back happy and thoughtful and well-adjusted from the experiences. But I would really like to see you and our other unofficial ambassadors who are students develop a skill set that enables you, to work in international relations if you decide you want to do that, or international development. To be able to take family trips and to feel confident doing that and being safe, and to really, be global citizens who are cognizant of your surroundings from that cultural perspective, so that you're having an impact, but also from that safety and awareness perspective, so that you just, you feel empowered to be able to do the things that you want to do, and that you're not intimidated that whether that family trip, that assignment abroad, or whatever it may be in your future, that it's beyond you, and that so that there's certain skill sets that you pick up, starting with this webinar, but that you hone throughout your experience as an unofficial ambassador. The number one key point that if you take nothing away from the next hour together is don't engage in a trust fall. That you guys are going to visually beautiful places with incredibly generous people, and we've done everything humanly possible in terms of setting up these programs so that we can mitigate risk and to leave as little risk as possible for your interactions. We've arranged great housing, transportation, your placements. We have country coordinators. The list goes on in terms of things that we've done. But with all that said and done, you can't just sort of fall backwards into the experience and expect that people are going to catch you. Is that you have to be using all of your senses. You have to be thinking critically about what it is that you do, not just from the perspective of keeping your personal self safe, but also that you guys are also part of a group, and you have to remember that your actions are going to reverberate on the rest of your group as well, and that other people are counting on you to behave in a way that is appropriate and thoughtful. So why don't we start off in our agenda with things that we need to do prior to departure, and start with the STEP program at the State Department. How many of you guys have already registered with the State Department for your trips? Good, Kate, you have. So Isaiah and Grace, you should take 10 or 15 minutes, and you should do this as soon as possible or immediately after this call. You know, what this basically is that you are officially registering with the U.S. State Department, your government, that you are going to be staying in Indonesia or in Tanzania for a certain period of time. And the usefulness of this is that you give them your email, and they have you. They know that you're there. So in the event that they need to send out what's called a warden message, like WARDEN, that there is protests going on and that you should avoid a certain area, that there's been an outbreak of a certain disease and that you should take X, Y, Z, and Z precautions. They can readily reach you. If there's a natural disaster that happens in the country, and for some reason Americans need to evacuate from the country, they can send you that information and they're able to reach you. You are officially on their radar, and that's a very good thing in terms of the profile that you want to have and the work that you're doing. The next thing is that everybody should create a backup of their key identity documents and also their banking documents. We already have copies of your passports, but what you should do is you should make a copy of the first page of your passport with all of your information, and you should carry that with you in a separate place than where you carry your passport. So in the event that your passport gets lost or stolen, you have this backup document with all of your information that is the first step in getting a new passport while you're overseas, so that you can prove who you are. Recommend keeping a paper copy of it and also emailing a copy to yourself or a family member, just so that it's not a scarce good in terms of your information, but you can rest assured that we have a copy of your passports. The second piece of this is to make a copy of both the front and the back of your banking card, your ATM card, your credit card. The reason why you want to make a copy of the back is in the event that you lose your credit card or it's stolen, that you have a number available to enable to cancel the credit card and to order a new one or to make whatever arrangements you have to make. Similar to the passport, recommend emailing a copy of the document to yourself. If you want for us to hold a copy for you, we're happy to do that as well. Also similar to the copy of the passport, you don't want to keep your copy with your originals. So if you don't want to be in a situation where all your eggs are in one basket, and if you lose one, that you lose all. Can I just stop for a second? And I'm sorry, I don't remember offhand, but have all of you, Isaiah, I think you're in China right now, is that correct? You've come back?
Yeah, he just got back a few days ago.
Okay, so my question was going to be, have all of you been outside the United States before? I know that we have a few people that have not been outside the United States.
Yes.
You guys all have?
Yeah.
Okay. So some of this you can visualize to some degree. Others, I think that these are pretty extensive trips, and they might not be the same as what you have done before. So any questions on the backing up of your passport and of your credit card information or the STEP program? No. Okay. So next thing is medications and prescriptions.
Ben, can I add one thing quickly?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. Just make sure that you, and I'm sure since you've all traveled before you know this, just make sure you let your bank know that you're traveling outside the country so your card doesn't get frozen or anything like that if you try to take money out. Just a reminder.
Good point. Moving on to medications and prescriptions. So there are pharmacies in Indonesia and in Zanzibar. You are able to get different kinds of prescription drugs, but by no means should you count on getting the prescription drugs that you need there, and that you should fill every prescription that you need before you go and have 6 weeks worth of it to take along with you. Specifically for Zanzibar, it's a requirement that you take anti-malarial medications. In Indonesia, it's a recommendation that you take anti-malarial medication while you're there. Like when I'm going to come and start up your program and do your orientation with you, I'm going to take anti-malarials while I'm there. It's just there's enough of a risk when you're traveling in places outside of major cities that you could get bitten by a mosquito and end up with something. The immunizations, these things are no joke. There's a requirement to get your typhoid immunization for both countries. A couple of our country partners in Indonesia got typhoid this past year, and they're Indonesian, like they're susceptible to this as well. It's not just foreigners that are like the target of these different kinds of diseases. You just don't want to mess around with this stuff. Kate, when you're in Zanzibar, you're going to see people walking around in winter coats in the middle of the summer because they have the chills, because they have malaria, and they once you get it, it's always in your blood system. The other one is dengue fever. Ayu, your country coordinator in Indonesia, is just recovering from dengue fever. She got it as well. And so the thing is fill the prescriptions you need, whether it's skin medication, whether it's birth control, whatever it may be, bring it with you. Bring any feminine hygiene products that you want to have with you. Doesn't mean that you won't be able to get them there, but just anything that you need or that you are part of your comfort zone. Personally, I take Aleve whenever I have a headache. I travel with a thing of Aleve. I travel with a little thing of Neosporin, Pepto-Bismol tablets, Imodium AD. You just want to have your own little medical first aid kit that is not like a walking pharmacy, but that you have a comfort zone that, if it's 11 o'clock at night and you're feeling under duress, that you can just go to your bathroom and get something rather than having to try and figure out where is the pharmacy where you'll be able to get something in the morning. Any questions on that? No. Okay. And has everybody gotten their immunizations already? Good. Excellent. Okay, so our next phase of this is getting on the airplane to go and the actual process of traveling to get there. Like unquestionably, whether you're going to Zanzibar or Indonesia, these are very long trips. I just booked my ticket. I think I've got 25 hours of travel going and 28 hours of travel coming back to Indonesia. I'm sure it's something similar for you guys for your tickets. So a few things to think about are, one, what is it that you're going to eat and drink on the airplane? Some people are really happy with plain food. Other people are not so happy with plain food. If you have, so you want to be bringing, like you can bring power bars with you, bring an empty water bottle, splurge the $1 or $2 to buy water on your layover so that you don't get dehydrated and you don't feel sick during your whole flight. Think about what your body needs over a 24-hour basis, and bring a sandwich with, bring a piece of fruit with, but do whatever it is. That don't expect that you're going to be able to buy anything anywhere, and bring it with you so that you're prepared for the flight and the layovers as well. If you're having a layover in a European country or another Asian country, just take a look at what the currency exchange rate is in that country in the event that you want to buy something in the airport, like food or drink, and you know what it is. I mean, you can also use your credit card, and you'll get the automatic exchange rate, but just have a general idea so that you can calculate, you know, what it is that you're spending money on. You might also want to think about downloading movies or books or whatever your choice of entertainment is to your iPad or your laptop. It's a long time in terms of traveling, and you know, it just thinking about like your mental health during the trip as well, and having some sort of way to you know, be entertained while you're doing that travel. Kathleen has set up Facebook pages for both of your groups, for the Zanzibar group and for the Indonesia group, and really encourage you guys to be in touch with your fellow unofficial ambassadors and to figure out if you're on the same flight as people, and to travel together with somebody else if you are on the same flight, and make arrangements to meet up at an airport. Just makes the trip, you know, that much easier to be doing it with somebody. We are working on the visa process, Grace and Isaiah, for Indonesia, and we expect we're going to have visa letters for you guys by the end of the week so that you can submit your passports to the embassy in Washington, D.C. in order to get your visas. If we continue to have delays with the visa process, then you know, we'll be in touch with about a different kind of system as far as getting your visas, whether we'll do it on arrival or whether we'll just ask you to send your passports to our office and we'll get them all done together at the same time rather than having you do them individually. Kate, are you going to be sending your passport to the embassy here to get a visa, or are you going to do a visa on arrival in Tanzania?
I had a question on what you guys were going to recommend because I haven't ordered for a visa yet.
It's unquestionably easier to do it in advance. So you can follow the directions, and Kathleen can send them to you from the embassy website to send your visa and a photo to the embassy, and I'm sorry, send your passport and a photo to the embassy to get your visa. And that way, when you arrive, you can avoid having to wait in the line there and, you know, basically stand there for an hour while there's like 50 people around you and trying to get your visa. It's an unnecessary, you know, if you can avoid it, then it's nice to be able to do it. So we recommend that. It's not the end of the world if you have to do it, though.
Okay, is it a tourism visa or are we doing student visa?
Yeah, it's a tourism visa, and we have a process where you will get a Zanzibar volunteer permit once you're already there. And so we're going to ask you for some documentation to get that process going so that it'll be ready either when you arrive or shortly after you arrive. Okay, good. Any other questions about things for before you go or the process of actually going?
Wait, so when you send us the visa information, what will we have to do for that?
We're going to give you step by step what it is that you have to do. There's an application that you have to fill out. There's passport photos that you'll have to send in. There's a letter of support that comes from Gajah Mada University in Indonesia, and the photo ID of the person who has written the letter of support. So there's a full package and a checklist, and Kathleen will send that all to you, and it will really be crystal clear in terms of what has to happen with it.
The reason that we just want to get the letters of support, so we're not sending you like 5 different emails with different things. It'll be easier to send everything all at once, but I will have that for you as soon as we have the letters.
Okay, moving on to being in country and taking responsibility for safety and acting in a safe way in country. Have all of you guys had a chance to look through your manuals so far? Not memorize them, but look through them? Okay. So if you look at, I think it's about page 49 in both the Indonesia and the Zanzibar manuals. It's the front page for taking responsibility for safety, and there's an orange box in the upper right-hand corner for what it is you do in the event of emergency. So you're sitting in a restaurant, and the people across from you, husband and wife couple, start screaming at each other. The husband takes a table, turns it over, starts yelling at his wife. What is it that you should do?
Nothing.
Well, that's partly right in that you don't want to intervene in their domestic squabble. What we're looking for is you want to immediately extricate yourself from the situation. You stand up, you walk out of the restaurant, and you just walk down the street. And in something like that, where it seems as if it's a pretty self-contained, squabble between two people that could, be just contained to two people, I don't think that you need to call your country coordinator and ask for help. You just proceed along the way and get to a safe place. What about if you're walking down the street in Jakarta, you were just coming out of a shopping mall, and you make a right, and you see a crowd of about 100 people marching down the street towards you, pumping their fists and carrying banners? What should you do? Isaiah, I would get out of the way. Good start.
Would you start walking the other way, I guess?
So if you just came out of the mall, turn right back around, go inside the mall, because what you're doing is you want to extricate yourself as quickly as possible from a situation that's perceived as a threat. And you want to find a safe public place in order to regroup and figure out what your next step is going to be. And so a mall is a bastion of commercialism. They like us. They want to sell us stuff. We're welcome in a mall. Like, you've ascertained that this is something that is not specifically targeted towards you, but that you could get wrapped up in as far as a threat. And it's not like the couple arguing in the restaurant where you're just sort of wrong place at the wrong time. So places like malls, car dealerships, Western restaurants, Western hotels, these are all places that want to sell you something that, share in sort of our social cultural values and capitalistic values that even if you're a Bernie Sanders social democrat, don't take offense to my term capitalistic values. These are not people who are immediately going to flip on a dime and want to hurt you. These are people that you share sort of this common ground with. So you extricate yourself from a situation is the first thing. And then the second thing that you do is you call your country coordinator and explain to them what it is that's going on. I'm at the mall. It seems like there's a protest going on outside. What is it that I should do? And it's like you're reaching out and phoning for help and getting guidance from a cultural context perspective of what it is that I should do. Banks are another great place, to go and to regroup. I mentioned, restaurants as well, hotels. So you're getting out of the way. What if your country coordinator doesn't answer? Well, if you're going to Zanzibar, Kathleen is your team leader. She's going to be there. She's the next person to call. If for some reason both Ulrika and Kathleen don't answer the phone, then we have a relationship with one of the NGOs that we are working with. We place a volunteer with. It's called FAWE, and you have Hinda, the CEO of that NGO. You have her number as well, and you call her. It's unlikely that you're not going to have somebody answer the phone. That everybody always answers their phones in these circumstances. They know that they're supposed to be on call. It's the same thing in Indonesia. You have IU as your country coordinator, AMPI is another country coordinator, and then you have 3 buddies. These are master's students at Gajah Mada University who are there to help facilitate with the program, and they're all expected to be able to respond to you in any situation. In the event that you can't reach anybody, it's some kind of crazy thing that happens in that regard, then you call me or text me and get the ball rolling in terms of activating help that can either advise you on the situation or begin the process of getting you out of the situation, getting help to come and get you. In both countries where you guys are going, the local emergency contact numbers or the police are generally people who are on your side. So in the first example of the couple fighting in the restaurant, if there was a police officer outside, you could go to the police officer and say, please go in there and do something. And they would be doing their job by coming and helping in that regard. So we've never had an incident of sexual assault or physical assault in one of our programs. If you look in your manual, though, we do have a counselor who's part of our team. He volunteers his time should he be needed. His name is Murray. You guys should know that if anything ever happens, you can speak with me or Kathleen about it, that we're available on a 24-hour basis. In the event that you want to speak with a counselor, though, we have somebody who we work with, and his information is available to you as well. Any questions about that? I guess I should reiterate that I don't expect these things to happen, but this is all part of maintaining a profile, of thinking about what is it that I'm going to do in the event that I face a certain circumstance. And for us, as running this program, we consider all these scenarios. Like I said, we try to take as much risk out of the equation as possible, but then we also have to set up plans for if this happens, then we do X, if Y happens, then we do Z, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the kind of planning and thinking that I want you guys to begin doing in terms of, when you show up at a market, that instead of just appreciating, wow, this is so awesome, they're selling live fish as big as my arm, take a look around the market and just calculate to yourself, all right, if I have to get out of here in a hurry, which way is it that I'm going to head, in which direction? Just taking a look at where the exits are when you enter into a building, like doing the little things to be aware of your situational surroundings are really quite important. Along those lines, I have 5 daily practices that I guess that I've honed over years of traveling and living in these different places, and I wanted to go through them with you guys. There's more in your manual that if you go through the section on taking responsibility for safety, there's some really good things here under the category of preventative security, keys to being safe abroad. There's some good lessons from a Peace Corps study, which has a much larger sample size than anything that we've done thus far. And then there's also stuff from OSAC, the Overseas Security Advisory Council's Travel Safety Guide. And there's things there about awareness and personal conduct. And like for a 2-hour briefing, I would go through several more of those. But just being cognizant of the time, I want to focus on 5 main points to pull out for you guys. The first is that you should conduct yourself professionally and expect respect. Part of that is how you dress for work every day. That if you're a teacher presenting yourself to the classroom in a way that a teacher would dress, not wearing ripped jeans or like a tank top, but walking in and having people look at you as an authority figure off the bat, just as you would in the United States. Even if, like in Indonesia, it seems like everybody wears flip-flops. It doesn't mean you can't wear flip-flops, but don't take the flip-flops to be 1 degree of separation from shorts and the beach. That if you conduct yourself in a certain way, then the world will see you in a certain way. And along those lines, I've found that a smile is probably one of the best, smile and eye contact are 1 or 2 of the best ways to stay safe in a public place. That if somebody is looking to pickpocket you or to mug you or to find a victim in general, then as difficult as it may be at times, exuding that element of outer confidence, and not arrogance, but confidence, and walking, standing straight up and looking at people and making eye contact, it sends a signal to the outside world of this is not an easy target. You look for somebody else who is going to be a target if you're looking for a target. Don't look for me. The second thing is to be patient and calm in the face of daily life. In both the places where you guys are going, the pace is so much different than what we're generally accustomed to in the United States. And I always run into a problem in Indonesia in that I'm trying to do things a little bit faster than the way other people want to be doing them. And sometimes I use my hands when I talk, and I have to be careful about hand gestures and just not making sure that I'm sending a mixed message from my body language, and remembering to take a deep breath. And it's a tough thing. Like also, you'll see this in Zanzibar, where again, timing is really quite different than what you expect in the United States. And just because people are showing up 15, 20 minutes late for a meeting. That doesn't mean that that gives you license to do so, but it also doesn't mean that you should start off each meeting being frustrated and angry that everybody's always 15 or 20 minutes late. Just accept that that is how things work, and it's different, and in some ways that could be good, in other ways it can be frustrating, but just to remain calm in that way. I talked about this a little bit in terms of being aware of your surroundings, but it's imperative that you use all five of your senses. You know, it's hard to find someone in the subway or the metro these days that doesn't have earbuds in and isn't in their own world of listening to music or talking with somebody. You're going to miss out on something, and I think that you want to capture all the sounds and smells and sights of the experience that you're going to be immersed in. So if you're walking around with earbuds in, you miss out on something. But B, like just these traffic patterns are crazy. Like you need to hear, like when you cross the street, like what's coming behind you, what's to the side. You want to just be aware of your surroundings, and so using earbuds is a really bad idea unless you're working out in a closed space or listening to music in a closed space, but not while you're moving. There's also part of the five senses is the touching sense, and you know, Isaiah, for you, as you meet women who have their head covered, you should probably wait until they extend their hand to shake your hand rather than putting your hand out first. Like you can put your hand over your heart on your chest and say, nice to meet you, like that, and nod your head. But you shouldn't have it be a given that everybody is going to want to shake your hands. And I guess in some very extreme circumstances, there could be guys that you run into, Grace and Kate, that don't want to shake your hands as well. But you know that's pretty extreme, and I don't think that that's the norm at all. Sometimes it's a common greeting amongst men or amongst women, but not mixed, to give each other kisses on the cheek, you know, hello or goodbye. You know, that's a European thing that goes across genders, but you know, in the countries where you guys are going, it doesn't go across genders. So it's a normal thing for a woman to give another woman a kiss on the cheek or two kisses, and that can also happen with guys, or you see guys walking and holding hands together. It's just a sign of friendship and really nothing more, just something to be aware of in that regard. Fourth is don't be a hero. You know, like I said, don't break up or get involved in that marital dispute in the restaurant as it's going on right next to you. That, in my mind, you guys are already heroes, that you're doing this amazing thing of going and doing volunteer service in communities that none of you have ever been to before, and places that none of you have traveled to before, and you know, people you don't know. And that's an incredible thing. And then you're going to come home and share that experience, you know, with your families and your social circles and people who you don't know. You don't need to break up a fight when you see it. That's going to put you in a situation where you perhaps don't understand the full context of what's going on. It's not your job to stand in front of that protest and explain, no, 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 only some of Americans don't want to let Muslims into the United States. It's not all of us. Like, you know, take a pass on those things. That's not your responsibility in this service as an unofficial ambassador. And then the last one I'd like to think about is taking care of yourself physically and mentally. From a physical perspective, I think a lot about eating, and you know, you guys should not be drinking local water while you're there. You should be trying to line your stomach, or something I always do is eat bread, rice, really bland starches that can help you get adjusted to life and food there. You know, not to jump in 2 feet first into all the different fried this and that and delicious things that, you know, over time you're going to try, but like, you don't need to try them all on your first 2 days there and just send your stomach into like a tailspin as far as, you know, what the reaction might be. From a mental perspective, like, these are intensive experiences. You know, the reflection sessions are a really important part of our program. They're a chance to talk about how you're feeling, you know, from an impact perspective and also from the safety perspective. And I encourage you to talk about this stuff. I encourage you also not to wait until the session, that if things are on your mind, to talk about it with your country coordinator, or talk about it with Kathleen or me, or get in touch with us. Don't let things, you know, fester and brew. And you know, if you need to run to get downtime, you know, in both the places where you guys are going, there's opportunities for you to go running or go to the beach or to do other kinds of exercise or to read books or go drink coffee. Like, take the time for yourself that you would do in the United States to decompress, listen to music, whatever it is. It's totally okay to say, you know what, I just need some time to myself. I'm going to stay in my room and take that time that I need. Any questions about any of that stuff? Any thoughts? Okay. So I talked about reflection sessions just really briefly, but a significant part of these reflection sessions is talking about the things that you see in your placement and whether it's okay. Like, that's why we have local country coordinators in each place. And you guys are going to show up at your schools or your NGOs, and there's going to be like 7 people loitering around outside. And you're going to wonder to yourself, is that normal? Like in workplaces in the United States or schools in the United States, we don't have people like loitering around outside. So bring that to your session. Talk about it with your colleagues and ask Ulrika or ask IU, what are these people doing there, and is that on the up and up? It's why we send our country coordinators to visit each site on a weekly basis, is so that they can scope it out and eyeball it and also make that determination of whether something is on or off there, or whether there needs an adjustment. But it really is, I mean, like, it sounds so cliche of see something, say something, but it really is on you guys to be observers in your workplaces and to, if something's not making you feel comfortable, to say something about it. Now, along those lines, we want to talk about sexual harassment for a couple of minutes, and I want to make clear that under no circumstances is there an expectation that as part of doing business, of going and volunteering in Indonesia or Zanzibar, it's expected that you're going to be sexually harassed in your workplace. That absolutely is not okay. There's no cultural relativism here whatsoever. That is not part of this program. And the worst possible thing that if that situation were to happen is for you to just take it and to suffer in silence and be miserable over the course of your time in country. I generally think that there's 2 main baskets of sexual harassment. One is overt sexual harassment, where someone is hitting on you and making you feel pretty uncomfortable in a sexual way, and there's no gray areas about it. The other basket is the one of innuendo and, what does this person really mean when he or she is saying this? What does this invitation mean? And there's generally some confusion around it, but the result is still the same, that you feel uncomfortable, in a sexual context. From our perspective, running this program, if you feel like you're being sexually harassed, then you are being sexually harassed. That we don't make a judgment call on, well, that's just sort of the way things work in this country. That if you are feeling uncomfortable, I beg you, please say something to the country coordinator, say something to Kathleen, or say something to me directly. We can figure these situations out, and we have in the past, but it requires saying something. So in the 4 years we've been running this program, we've had 2 cases of sexual harassment, 1 of each variety. The really overt one, thankfully, the volunteer in Tajikistan who was being hit on her first 2 days of work at a university, said something to our country coordinator. He went and met with the supervisor, and it was absolutely put to an end. The person who was approaching her was not allowed to basically come within 15 feet of her again, and they were mortified that that was going on. And there's this general idea of, would it be okay for a Tajik man to talk to a Tajik woman like that, or a Zanzibari man to talk to a Zanzibari woman like that? And the answer is clearly no, and they were not happy. The second case, unfortunately, was more of the second variety, where a volunteer who was teaching in Zanzibar felt as if 2 teachers at her work site were making unwanted advances towards her, stopping in her classroom and saying hello. One of them invited her over to his house for dinner to meet her family. And it was one of these things where it could have been a cross-cultural gray area. Were they just being friendly and welcoming, or was there something more going on? And to my great sadness, this volunteer did not say anything to anybody until the night before she left the country. So there was nothing that we could do to improve the situation for her while she was in the situation. After she told us, we did a whole after-action investigation. We talked to the principal at the school, we talked to the teachers, we went to the Ministry of Education, our partner there, and again, they were mortified that they had had this volunteer there this whole time who felt as if she was being sexually harassed. They have a zero tolerance for that as well, and had we been alerted to the situation, then we could have done all of that while she was there and made sure that the behavior stopped. So I absolutely beg you, if you feel as if you're being made to feel uncomfortable in that kind of harassment situation, please, please, please say something. I would be shocked if this was the case, but if you feel as if you are receiving some type of sexual harassment from someone who's part of our team, like one of the country coordinators or one of the buddies, then please do not hesitate to bring it to me, and I will pursue that situation pretty aggressively. Again, I would be quite saddened and shocked if that was the case, but you always, in terms of thinking about different scenarios, you always have to leave yourself open to something like, anything could happen. So, any questions on that? Unfortunate topic, but a reality. No. Any of you guys have experience with sexual harassment in the past? Okay, so hopefully that continues. It's just an uncomfortable situation. All right, let's move on to, we've got 3 more things to talk about, and then we'll get to questions. We're going to talk about transportation. I wanted to run through a couple of scenarios with you, and then I wanted to review insurance with you. With transportation, as part of the program, so I think that in Indonesia, once you get past illness and the various diseases that are out there, the biggest risk to your health in Indonesia is related to mopeds and traffic and transportation. Zanzibar is a little bit better because you don't have mopeds flying around all over the place, but it's something that we really spend a lot of time thinking about in terms of how to mitigate that risk. So with Indonesia, we've contracted with a driver in a van who's going to pick and drop you guys off from your workplaces on a daily basis in the morning and in the evening. Going to drive you to all of your cultural trips. And as part of orientation we're going to do in country, IU and the group are going to show you the best ways to get taxis, to get bicycles, whatever the rest is. We're avoiding a situation where you guys have to ride on mopeds and drive mopeds. That I equate this to asking a 10-year-old from Indonesia to come to New York and ride the subway. Riding a moped in Indonesia, if you're Indonesian, is a common practice. If you grew up in New York City and go to public schools, you know how to ride the subway. You're going to school, or not even public schools, any schools. You go to school on the subway. But for a foreigner to come in for a short period of time and to do that, it's difficult and potentially dangerous. In Zanzibar, you guys live in a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Stonetown. You're going to be walking distance. It's a 10-minute walk from your apartment to the English-speaking Muslim International School. And for all the different cultural trips that you guys do there, we have a car that will come and pick you up if necessary to do that. But it's really very much a walking culture. Anytime that you do need a taxi or a ride, we have a couple of drivers we work with, and Ulrika will be able to help set you up with that. But it's not one of these situations where you need to take a taxi to get anywhere. It's basically you walk to get anywhere that you want to go. So as far as scenarios, I want to run in. I think with time, I'll do one of them. We'll see if we have time for 2 of them to run by you. So this is a real scenario of something that happened last summer in Morocco at a train station in Meknes, a major city in Morocco. We had a volunteer who was coming back from a homestay weekend that was part of the program, and our driver, who was not a regular taxi cab driver, but a driver for our partner organization, was at the train station to meet our volunteer. And as she came out of the train station, the local taxi cab drivers took umbrage to the fact that this guy from outside the city was there to pick up the fare and did not feel as if they felt as if he was stealing their business. They confronted him and got in his face and started pushing him and yelling him, and the volunteer was right there. What should the volunteer have done in that kind of situation? Grace.
Wait, so like the driver of the volunteer was being...
Right, so the driver of the volunteer was being pushed and yelled at, and the volunteer was standing right there.
I guess would they call someone? Good.
So Isaiah says, found a safe place. Yes, Grace, you should have called someone, but what should she have done first, Kate?
I think you should get out of that area first and then call someone as soon as you're in a safe place, public area.
Right. So she just came out of the train station. Good indicator. She should have turned right back around, gone into the train station. Great public place that's safe. There's lots of other people. Most likely going to be a police officer there, and send the police officer out to help the driver. Unfortunately, what she did was she joined the driver. She started yelling back at the people who were confronting the driver. The driver got punched a few times, and she got pushed, and she got spat on. And she's very lucky that something worse didn't happen. I mean, she called the country coordinator and said what was going on, but it's just we all dodged a bullet on that one, because in terms of situational awareness, she tried to be a hero, and as much as we respect that in terms of being someone of high character, the way that she could have best helped Hassan, the driver, was to have gone and gotten a police officer and sent him out to help Hassan to defuse the situation. So a very good example in terms of what it is that we want for you guys to do if you're ever facing that kind of adversity. The other situation was similar to the one I made up about the restaurant. We had a volunteer in Bangladesh who was on an overnight ferry ride from one place to another, and over the course of that ride that night, a husband started beating his wife, within eyesight of other people, and this volunteer went and interceded in the domestic dispute, which, if that happened here in the United States or happened right outside, we would immediately call 911. We would try to do something to break that up. But we just have no idea what the cultural context is in some of these places. And so he prevented the husband from inflicting further harm on the wife, and he sat there throughout the night, in a public place that it didn't seem as if something untoward was happening between him and the wife. But while he might have really helped her out in that exact moment, we have no idea of knowing what happened the next day, what kind of shame this guy suffered in a public way because this foreigner showed him up in front of his wife. All kinds of crazy cultural things that we don't quite understand. We don't know what happened. And so, I just tell that story to reinforce the point that unquestionably there's right things to do, and sometimes it might really hurt to not immediately do the right thing. But you just have to be really careful about the situations that you thrust yourself into, and to consider, in life, one has to advocate for oneself, whether that's getting a job, whether that's with your professors, whatever it is. And in this situation of living overseas, being overseas, the first thing you guys have to think about is, I need to make sure that I keep myself safe. As selfish as that might be, I have to look out for myself, because in this environment where everyone is a stranger, I'm not sure who else is looking out for me in that sort of same deep way. Okay, last part before we get to questions is to review your insurance package. Make sure that you guys understand it. This is a wonderful travel insurance package. There's about 20 pages of frequently asked questions in your manuals, which I encourage you to skim through. just to explain to you in general what's in your insurance package. You have up to $50,000 of coverage, like for medical evacuation, repatriation. You can extend that coverage if you want. That's up to you. But as part of the program, you have $50,000 worth of coverage. The medical evacuation, in the event that you get sick or something happens to you and you're not able to continue volunteering as part of the program, you need to go home to get medical treatment. With the doctor's recommendation, that's covered. Something called trip interruption. Trip interruption is a couple of things. One of them is, let's say you break your arm and you don't need to be medically evacuated, but it's no longer comfortable for you to be in Zanzibar in Indonesia. You're not able to really do this volunteer service anymore. So with a note from the doctor, you can have up to $3,000 worth of coverage, change your airplane ticket, and come home. Someone in your nuclear family gets sick or passes away, then trip interruption can be used for that as well, to come home and take care of things and to change your airplane ticket. There is political unrest insurance, which means that, let's say there is a terrorist attack in Kenya and there's a travel warning against all of East Africa. If we feel that the program is no longer, it's no longer safe for you to be there, or you feel no longer safe to be there and the State Department issues some kind of travel warning or some kind of guidance that puts that out there, then you can curtail your trip, with that kind of insurance.
Do we stay on, or?
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know.
I'm gonna wait a couple minutes, and then if you don't come on, I'm just gonna leave.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm guessing they their systems went down or something. I don't know. Are you teaching in Zanzibar?
Yeah, I'm at that school he was talking about, the English-speaking Muslim international school.
Cool.
What are you doing in Indonesia?
Sorry?
Where are you in Indonesia? What's your placement?
I'm also teaching at a school. I'm teaching at an all-girls school and a Muslim all-girls school. So, yeah, we're on the island of Java, which will be fun.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Where do you go to school?
I go to Washington College. It's in Maryland. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I was figuring it's in Washington State.
Oh, no. It's on the eastern shore of Maryland. So it's like an hour and a half from DC and Baltimore. It's kind of like in the middle.
That's cool.
But what about you?
I go to Rollins. It's in Florida.
Okay. Where in Florida?
Like right outside Orlando.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, I guess they're not coming. I don't know.
I'm guessing they'll just like send us an email or something.
Yeah.
Oh wait, nope. There we go. They lost power.
All right. I'll see you soon, I guess.
Bye.